Welcome back to the Jason Greger Show. My name is Jason Strudwick, 346. If you're just catching on now, the Vegas Golden Knights have traded Dandinoff to Canadiens for Shea Weber, and Edmonton will not be getting any games during the FIFA World Cup. Vancouver was chosen, as well as Toronto. So obviously I don't like the Midwest. Let's now turn our attention to the world of racing for the CanTorque Racing Report, brought to you by CanTorque Racing. There are a few tools who listen to the show, but none of them are built as well as the ones from CanTorque. Check them out at cantorque.com. Colin, the drama continues to unfold with F1, and let's talk a little bit about what's, we know that the new cars, the way they're set up, are creating some issues for the guys' backs. What is specifically they're doing that is making it so painful for some of the drivers to compete?
Well, the thing that the teams are doing here, Struddy, is that to get the cars to run their fastest, they have to run them low, like crazy low. And on a track like Baku last weekend, that's a street circuit. It's not really built for not really built. It's not built at all for race cars. And they kind of force their way on there with the new tire, that they introduced this year with the 18-inch wheel, where last year they were 14-inch wheels. The tires have almost no sidewall to them compared to the way they used to. And with the cars being as low as they are, they're actually hitting the ground. So there's been a couple of issues that have recurred throughout the year. One is this concept of porpoising, where, we've shown videos where the cars just bounce violently once they get up to speed, where the aerodynamics of the under tray basically suck the car down. When it runs out of suspension travel, it kind of upsets the balance and the car will violently bounce back and forth. And I mean, you can see drivers' heads just, being shaken to pieces. What was happening last weekend is the cars were actually bottoming out and physically hitting the track, where a number of drivers, most notably Lewis Hamilton, was complaining about back problems, like, back pain during the race, and, his backside went numb. And I mean, you could see at the end of the race that Lewis had a really, really hard time, getting out of the car. So it's, I think it's something that really needs to be looked at.
So is this something that the drivers could bring up to the tour, or how does this happen to maybe, get rid of it? Because it seems pretty significant when your top drivers can, barely move up there.
Well, there's a number of things that happen. Teams will always exploit their situation or exploit a scenario to their best advantage. And other teams will do the same thing. They'll spin it and they'll turn it. I mean, Christian Horner, the entire management group over at Red Bull, there's a number of words that I can use, but let's just say that they're not always the nicest people. After seeing and hearing that Lewis was complaining on the radio, Christian Horner came out publicly and said, yeah, what I would do is get my drivers to really bitch about the situation, to try and get the series to respond, basically making it seem like Mercedes was playing politics, to try and get a rules change that would help them, which is something that Red Bull's been the beneficiary of the last couple of years. Ironically, or, hypocritically, their own team driver, Pierre Gasly, spent a lot of last week talking about the back pain that he had from the exact same, phenomenon where these cars are bottoming out. Now that's his own driver. That's Christian Horner's own driver under the same Red Bull umbrella doing the same thing. So are they playing games, or is, maybe acting like a bit of an a-hole all the time isn't the most conducive to getting your point across.
With Colin Livingston for the CanTorque Racing Report here on TSN 1260, the Jason Greger Show. F1 is in Montreal. What can the fans expect this weekend? First time it's been there in 3 years?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, so excited to have the race back. I mean, I kind of regret not getting that race lined up so that I can be back there. I was at that last race of 2019. Really happy that the Greger's going to be out there and Tracy to to be able to get their first F1 experience. Montreal is just an awesome city from start to finish and front to back. The city really knows how to host this race. They know how to get people in and out, so you're not really going to hear traffic issues. I mean, keep in mind there's going to be 100,000 people there, so yes, you're not going to be able to walk in 60 seconds. It takes half an hour, 45 minutes to get onto the island. But once you're there, things flow fairly well. Decent amount of overtaking opportunities at the track. Some high speed sections, some technical sections. I mean, it's not the most complicated track to get around for sure, but trying to maximize your lap it's going to take some doing for sure. I mean, there's a lot of subtlety to the track. It can be very, very tight, and if you make a little mistake, those walls come up pretty quick.
Now, there was some discussion about maybe some of the top racers being unable to partake this weekend. Is everyone available and healthy to be in this F1 in Montreal?
So far, everyone is present and accounted for. No mentions of any absenteeism yet. So.
Perfect. That's what the fans here want to see in Canada. Let's turn our attention out to the NASCAR Penalties series, and it seems like there's a few hotheads rolling around, which caused quite a bit of havoc on the race.
It was a really, really eventful race. I mean, fortunately not for us. We managed to mostly stay out of the trouble, but this Saturday, I want to say Saturday at noon, the race will be rebroadcast on TSN. So highly encourage people to get in front of the TV and watch. I mean, this is we were at Autodrome Chaudiere, just outside of Quebec City. It's just a little quarter-mile bull ring, really decent banking in the corners, and for some reason, it had the tempers flying. I mean, the number 2 car of TJ Renamoto was, pretty much destroyed. He got into it with the number 1 at some point. I wasn't really focused on that back stuff. I even saw, Donald Teege got into it with Dexter Stacy. That's nothing new. Donald Teege has a pretty short temper the best of times. I was going to make a joke, but I'll save that because I don't want Donald to punch me in the face when I see him. But even our good friend Larry Jackson, who I always refer to as one of the nicest people on the planet, he kind of lost his temper a little bit and made a bit of an aggressive move. Didn't make any contact. He was spun with about 1 lap to go by someone, and they were racing for like 12th or 13th place. It was really a nothing move, but lots of action, lots of confusion. The leaders at the break, Andrew Ranger and Marc-Antoine Camerand, they both pitted incorrectly. So what we have to do at this break race is the caution car comes out, everything that happens at the track happens outside the track. It's not like a conventional facility where we kind of pull to the infield. All the pits are outside the track. The pace car sits outside. So when it pulls onto the track and collects the field, there was a whole procedure for when we were supposed to head back to our garage spot. And both Camerand and Ranger messed it up. Camerand went out 1 lap too early. Ranger went out 1 lap too late. So they both ended up dropping from number 1 and number 2 to the back of the longest line. But these guys had rocket ships. I mean, they were able to get back to the top 5 within about 5 laps of restarting. It was crazy to see how fast they got through the field. But I mean, Andrew Ranger had the win. Great to see him back and in the winner's circle. We managed to fight out a 5th place with Alex, and managed to move to a tie for the championship lead here, heading off to St. John's, Newfoundland next weekend.
Now, it sounded like your car had a bit of, as you mentioned, some balance issues. So what does that mean in a car as far as you struggle with the balance of the car?
Basically, balance means where your grip is. So we were really struggling in the early part of the race with understeer, where the front of the car didn't want to grip. So we couldn't, as you go to turn the wheel in, you're trying to point to the lowest part of the track, and the car just wanted to slide the front end. Our boys from 22 Racing, Scott Steckley, and all of our crew guys, we had a 5-minute window, managed to make, we really made small changes. It wasn't like normal where we kind of go through and do these wholesale changes. It was just little adjustments that got the balance a little bit better for the long run. And once we did that, I mean, we restarted after the break in seventh, I think. Drove up as high as fourth, but then towards the end of the race, with all the tempers being lost, there were a few extra cautions that as we were getting ready to we probably had a top 3 car, but with 2 late race cautions that bunched everything up, there was just nowhere to go. Guys are running side by side, and unless you're going to destroy 2 cars for a position or two, we were stalled out there. But great effort. And yeah, I mean, we're pretty excited getting to Eastbound Raceway here next weekend for the first trip of the for NASCAR in general, to get out to the Rock.
I love it. And last one is about NASCAR, and interesting where maybe some of the pit crews weren't quite on their mark, as some tires were flying off of cars.
Yeah, I mean, last year's champion Kyle Larson, really seems to be struggling this year. They were at Sonoma, great little road course in California. He had a wheel come off, and the penalty for losing a wheel is your crew chief and that tire changer suspended for 4 races. Obviously they take the safety of these things pretty seriously. I just think it's absolutely ludicrous that you lose a wheel, which is an honest mistake. There's no advantage to a team, under tightening a wheel. In the olden days where there were, 5 wheel studs, teams would do a lot of tricky things like drill out wheel nuts and things like that, so that they were weld wheel nuts onto the wheel that were drilled out, so that they only had to tighten, 2 or 3 nuts. So they would shorten their pit stops. Now there's a center lock wheel, so they can do these things really quickly. It's just 1 nut, and again, there's no advantage to having a loose wheel. So the penalty for that being 4 weeks and like $100,000 fine. But if you drive like an absolute moron on the track, you don't get penalized. And NASCAR says, well, we'll just leave it up to the other drivers to drive into you like a moron. Just, the same, I keep hitting on the same thing, but there's more and more examples of how the weighting system and the penalty system is just really, really disproportionate.
Colin, I really appreciate it. Enjoy the race watching this weekend with F1 in Montreal.
Oh, you bet. Always do, man.
Thanks, buddy. Talk to you soon.
You bet. Thanks, Charles.
Colin Livingston, CanTorque Racing Report, and it's a bucket lister for Greg to be out there at F1. So let's all wish him luck and enjoy what he wants to enjoy.